The Tesla AI event is coming on August 19th. This is about 10 days from now. We actually asked the company to invite us. They answered us that they will not invite us because this is an exclusive recruiting event for software engineers and AI engineers and not for investors. And that's okay. I want to discuss this particular situation. I want to discuss in general what I think about Tesla's approach towards recruiting and the human resource question that we've raised a few times already on this podcast. This is not even wrong podcast. It's August 9, 2021. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is up 2.2%. For the year, we are up 11.1%. The market for the year is up 18.4%. We're underperforming by 7.3%. Tesla announced their AI day for August actually 17th, I apologize, August 17th, not 19th, and we will not be invited as investors, and the reason they gave us is because it is a recruiting event. Now, let's talk a little bit about this. Let's dissect that. First of all, I think it's fantastic that Tesla is doing this, and the way they're doing it, I think this is now our conjecture, is that they contact probably all the interesting robotics departments in the US and probably globally, and then try to bring some of the most promising graduate students that could potentially work for Tesla. This is just the way we think they're doing it. This is not confirmed, this is conjecture, just to be clear about that. And I think overall, Tesla has a big problem to solve, which is, we call it the human resource question. And here's what we think about that. A lot of companies are talking about innovation, disruption, all that kind of stuff. And they are forgetting one big point here, which is if you really are disrupting, let's say, a sector or technology, you have to have a disruptive workforce. You can't do something without actually doing it. Now, this sounds probably obvious, but what I mean with that is, I meet a lot of people in Silicon Valley living in San Francisco, and they work for startup X, startup Y, and most of these people bore me. And the point here is that if I meet somebody that's boring, that doesn't inspire me, then how can that person work in that startup and be interesting and do interesting things? And also, how can that company do interesting things? This is sort of the key message here, is that you can only disrupt something, you can only fundamentally change something, you can develop new concepts and engineering practices if you have that kind of thinking. You have to have that kind of approach towards solving problems in order to actually succeed in disrupting. And that is very difficult to achieve because humans, by default, are not like that. Humans are not disruptors. Humans are particularly those who achieve the highest echelon of knowledge, i.e. they go to Ivy League colleges and Stanford and Berkeley and all that. They've already fought through so many battles to be accepted at the highest echelon of academic society, and then they end up in the rat race that Peter Thiel describes in his book, 0 to 1. And as this is one of the books that we have as a foundation for our principle stack, I want to digress a little bit. What he says in the book, in 0 to 1, is that you need to almost undo all your thinking and all your approaches and all the stuff that you've been doing to get to the level where you are, let's say, to get your PhD at this prestigious university. And then you have to find this uniqueness in you. You have to find this approach that is so unusual, so different, in order to generate wealth. And I think what applies for a company, what applies for a person, applies to a company as well. So Tesla has that exact problem. How do I create a workforce that is disruptive? And we've discussed this in the past, where we asked ourselves that Tesla wants to be a vertically integrated company because they typically don't have they can't work with legacy suppliers, to keep it short. But one of the biggest legacy supply industries in the world is our academic institution. They haven't innovated for over 100 years. I think Stanford is the last research university that was founded in the United States over 150 years ago by a disruptor, Leland Stanford. So you're in this catch-22 where you have to disrupt, you have to create a culture of disruption, you have to come up with new concepts. And on the other hand, you have this elitist society within the academic institutions that is almost orthogonal to that. Now, I don't want to diminish the actual content or in other words, the capability of these people to achieve high academic accolades in the context of, let's say, a top university and things like that. That's not easy, and it takes capable people to do that, hands down. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is the culture. It is well, this is how we do things. Why should I take a risk? I'm established. I myself, when I was on Wall Street, had that same experience that typically the people that I worked with that came from the higher the echelon was in terms of university that they came from, the more difficult they were to work with. Now, this is my personal problem because I was very different than most other people. I came to Wall Street with a clear goal to make money and then go and start my own hedge fund. And that was orthogonal to the culture of Wall Street. So of course I had issues with particularly those types who just by being there and by having a resume which said Harvard or something like that, already thought that they almost for sure will get to that managing director position, etc., etc. My point being is that I think what I did on Wall Street and having problems with these people is what also companies like Tesla, I'm sure, have to face and in much bigger scale. And the question is, how do they do this? And I think this AI event that is coming up is a good answer to that. They really are trying to do things differently. And I think this is a great positive for us. This is a great positive for any Tesla investor and customer, because that increases the chance that Tesla will succeed within the AI front, which, by the way, is not just the self-drive technology. It is also the automation of manufacturing, build the machine to build the machine, which will then enable a much faster and at-scale production of the cars, better cars, and there will be a flywheel effect that hopefully will lower the price and increase the value and therefore keep disrupting the industry even more than it has been today. I want to also, before I finish, just mention one thing that I came across recently, and I came across this theory, and this is in context with AI, with intelligence. It comes from neuroscientists, doesn't matter who it is. Certain neuroscientists, they wrote about the sort of how our brain works and how intelligence works. I don't want to go too deep into this, but I want to say one thing which I just caught my attention. And that is that what they believe is that the way we work as humans, the way intelligence works is that we build a model of the world and then we keep predicting based on the model. And then when the predictions are wrong, we fix the model. And to me, this is a beautiful technical explanation of what we call try and error or iteration. And iteration is at the core of any disruptive process. So if we put all these things together, what I'm trying to say here is the following, that in terms of building intelligence, let's say a human is developing intelligence by continuously building a model of the world and then predicting and fixing the mistakes of the prediction. That can be done by actually doing things, that can be done by reading things, by virtually or physically. The point being is that you can only become smarter if you do things, if you actively push forward and do things. And I think this applies also to organizations, i.e. companies. And that's why I think what Tesla is doing is continuously trying to do things differently, learning from the mistakes and improving and so on and so forth. This is exactly what it takes to build intelligence within the context of a company. This is what it takes to be a disruptor. We have said many times on this podcast that the definition of disruption, in fact, is the lowering the cost of iteration. So the lower the cost of iteration, the higher your chances are to come up with new ideas, or let's say, in other words, to be smarter, to be more intelligent about solving a problem. This applies to a human as much as it applies to a company. So what Tesla is doing with this AI Day is just another step towards lowering the cost of iteration by trying to, I would say at a relatively low cost, attract the highest possible talent they can get. It's a try, it might not work, it might be a waste, but it's absolutely important for Tesla to try to do these kinds of things, because there is no other way. There is no other way for Tesla to achieve the goals that we've stated so many times, which is to fundamentally change the way cars are made, cars are driven, transportation is made, all these things. You have to have the talent and the culture. You have to have the talent and the culture that is required to take risks, academic risks, intellectual risks, theoretical risks. But what I mean with that is, for example, the risk that they took to go fully vision and skip radar. That was a big risk. That was a big risk they took. I remember when they changed their software approach to Software 2.0 under Andrej Karpathy, it created a lot of havoc within the software organization of Tesla. It created this, let me say, uncomfortable situation where legacy software people weren't comfortable anymore with the way it's been done. So there was this turmoil and people were leaving, and everyone was saying, you see, the Tesla software approach is collapsing. But it wasn't. It was just another sign that Tesla is iterating, and the cost of iteration is also, of course, is attrition. You want to see people leave. You don't want people to stay at the company for 30 years. That is almost by definition a sign that not a lot of new things are happening. The more attrition you have, the more volatility, the more anger, the more people are screaming and yelling about approaches within the company, the more it is also a sign that this company is iterating. Now, of course, there is also a limit to all these things, and it can go too far. It can become a problem. But overall, I think it's a good sign that we have these news reports every now and then that such and such is leaving, such and such thinks that it is time to leave, and all that stuff. So to summarize, the Tesla AI Day is a great way to recruit people. We are very happy about this. We hope that Tesla can gather the technical talent necessary, but much, much more important than the technical talent is what I call the cultural composition of the talent that is being acquired here in terms of fitting into the Tesla culture, but also we keep developing a new Tesla culture. The Tesla culture is not static. It shouldn't be static. Hopefully it's not static. Hopefully it is a culture of continuous innovation, of continuous driving iteration. And like we said, like I just said, iteration is, if you can lower the cost of iteration, you have a chance to disrupt. Iteration comes with mistakes. The same way we build intelligence as humans, which is we have a model of the world, and then we predict, we make mistakes, we fix the model. The same way a company has to do the same. Let's say the company has a model of how to recruit people, then they try something new, and if it works out, they keep doing that, and they have to keep changing. And this is exactly what Tesla is doing. Fundamentally, what Tesla needs is a culture of continuous innovation and iteration combined with technical know-how. And this is exactly what they're trying to achieve with the AI Day. Thank you.